Welcome back to the Women in AV podcast. I am your host, Erica Carroll, and today we are diving into another inspiring story of a woman breaking barriers in the AV world, celebrating their accomplishments, and working towards better visibility and representation within Pro AV. Joining me today is our lovely guest, Amanda Wildman. Hello, Amanda.
Hi, how are you, Erica? I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Good. I'm doing well. I appreciate you so much. She and I first met in another podcast with a couple of amazing women in AV who I hope to bring into the show one day soon. So thank you, Amanda, for taking time with us today. I know that you're super busy between your business, TruMedia, and with CEDIA, which we can get to in just a minute. I just wanted to say thank you so much.
Of course.
So let's start way back in the beginning. How did you get into AV?
Oh, goodness gracious. Go way, way back. First of all, this was never supposed to be my route at all. Not in a million years. I actually went to school to go into business. I was actually biology pre-med, so I always liked the sciences first. And then I thought, well, I'll go into business and be hospital administration kind of a thing. And I met my husband. And my background actually comes from the satellite world. So my husband was actually working for a cell phone company, and they kind of were starting to do satellite installations and things like that. And I was like, this is bonkers. Like, you're building a business essentially from the ground up for someone else. I'm like, we should be betting on ourselves. We should do this for ourselves. And so I said, let's live off of my salary, because I was in a really good job. I was actually working at a jewelry store. I'm a certified diamondologist and gemologist. That's my previous
who knew?
Yeah, that's what I was going to be. I was going to be a diamond buyer. Who knew? Now I still sell expensive stuff, just very different expensive stuff. The guys like me maybe a little bit more now. But no, I said, why don't we bet on ourselves, and why don't we do that? And so we did first year, and, we broke even. So we said, well, let's just kind of keep doing it. And so we started down that pathway. And of course, if you and your spouse own a business together, if you want to have any time for the two of you together, you need to learn how to be quicker and more efficient at work. And so I learned very quickly, most people wanted their satellite installed when they got home from work. And that's when I wanted to go spend dinner or, time with my family. So I would convince my husband, well, if you take me along and I can learn and I can help you cut your installation in half, the time in half, we could go out for dinner or we could do something else. And so really kind of it was like just by like default, and maybe, wanting to have more family time, that I got involved and, helped with the paperwork and slowly but surely started to learn some of the install stuff. And as our business got busier, I came into the office and kind of did the background paperwork stuff. But I didn't always love the paperwork stuff. I really enjoyed the challenge of going out into the field. And so in my business, I actually spend usually about 50 to 60% of my time roughly out in the field. And I build a lot of our racks, work on a lot of our lighting panels, and I'm actually currently finishing up my electrical journeyman apprenticeship so that I will be able to be a licensed electrical journeyman hopefully very, very soon. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so a weird way to get here, but here I am nonetheless, and so excited to meet and be with other ladies like you to hear their journeys, because I don't know that any of us ladies have a straight path journey that got into here. I think we're all
No, I don't think we do.
We have a little bit windy roads.
Yeah. And that's funny, because when I talk to men in the industry, mostly they're like, oh yeah, I came from broadcast. Oh yeah, I came from audio. I was a roadie. Like there seems to be some sort of path that people are taking into the industry, although they've fallen into it. For women, it's literally like a whole modge podge, and then they end up here.
Yeah, I've never, I can't think of a single woman that I've met in the industry that it was a straight path. I think going forward, we're starting to see more conversations and, young women seeing women in it. It's more aspirational. They can do it. But I think a lot of us kind of got in here a little wonky or by default. Maybe, it was a chance, opportunity or something like that, and we found that we loved it, because that's what the case was for me. Like, I really found that I loved it. I had a passion for it, and I'm so thankful that by default in the weird, wacky way that I got here. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I also want to talk a little bit about CEDIA because
Yep.
aside from everything you do and spending, 50 to 60% of your time building rocks and being on site, you're also heavily involved in CEDIA, which for those of you who are listening who don't know, CEDIA is the residential AV side of our industry. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do with them?
Absolutely. So CEDIA stands for the Custom Electronic Design and Installation Association. We are the Association for Smart Home Professionals. So everything that people may do on the commercial side or the higher ed side or things like that, we do in people's residential spaces, and help them use technology to make their lives at home the best that it can be. And
Mm-hmm.
that is kind of where my journey started. So moving from satellite, right? How did I get into like doing installing? And I mentioned lighting panels and electrical and things like that. CEDIA was really part of that journey. I know we all remember, when people were starting, Netflix was just kind of first starting to come out. And my husband and I, I'm glad that we were kind of really paying attention to what was going on around us. And we saw Netflix coming and we're like, this streaming thing, that's going to be a big thing. That's going to be a changer.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for being in the satellite industry, that was going to change our world. So, you have a few options. You either die, right? Like, let it die off. You try to sell your business or you adapt. And
Mm-hmm.
right about that same time when people were really starting to do the streaming is really when we saw a big, huge influx of people requesting getting TVs installed and hung on a wall. And, you started seeing some of the sound bars and things like that. So very small kind of little projects. And I said to my husband, let's kind of dip our toes into that and see, what we can do. And for me, I'm always about an education. So I said, where can
Mm-hmm.
I go to get educated about that? So I did a little bit of research and we found CEDIA. And I went to my very first CEDIA Expo, which that's the new one this year is coming up in September, very short time
Yep.
away. But I went to my first expo and I bought the all access pass because I said, I don't know what I'm going to need to learn or where I want to go. So let's just get one pass
Yeah.
and go to everything.
Get it all. Yeah.
And I'm so thankful. It was actually another woman in the room. I went to, at the time they called it their CEDIA Outreach Instructor Program, which allows people to learn how to give continuing education credits to designers, builders, and architects. And I didn't have the forethought to necessarily think I would do that myself, but I thought if I could go to a class that teaches people how to teach architects and builders and designers about technology, maybe I would learn a lot that I could kind of, I could use. And it would be
Mm-hmm.
dumbed down because it was at first, I think, a little intimidating to think about going to some of these really heavy technical classes. So to me, that felt like kind of a safe bet. And I was like, well, I certainly should be able to understand technology from a designer and a builder's perspective, right? A little bit more basic. So I went to that class, and Peggy Ward, who no longer is at CEDIA, but she was very involved in CEDIA. She was on staff and she was the instructor for that. And bless her heart, after the class, she said, I really enjoyed having you in the class. I really think, you've got a great personality. I want to help encourage you. And for me, the best way that I've found to grow and learn has been to get involved. And so she
Mm-hmm.
brought me in to be a volunteer and, kind of get involved. And I'm so thankful for that because what's crazy about the whole volunteering, and I'm sure you've noticed this too, Erica, is it's the weirdest thing because it feels like the more you give, like you get so much more back. Like I gained
Mm-hmm.
so much more knowledge, so much faster. I got so many more connections. People helped me avoid pitfalls because as we were growing our business, they'd say, check out this product. It works really well with that product. Let me introduce you to, your rep in your area. And through volunteering, for me, it was like I found the fast lane, like the express lane, like
Mm-hmm.
on the expressway
Yeah.
where you get the, the fast track or the fast pass. Volunteering to me, and it sounds counterproductive, right? Because you think I'm taking time out of my life to volunteer. and I have so much to learn, but I learned so much more, so much faster through my volunteering. So I'm forever thankful for Peggy and all the people that have poured into me, for sure.
That's awesome. So over the time, I mean, you've mentioned Peggy for this transition in your life, but what has a mentor looked like in that evolution of, I mean, starting your own business? That's a whole nother learning curve in itself, and obviously leading up to today.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's a great question, because so often, and we actually talked about it earlier today, ironically, you must have been listening in on the conversation. I was just on a CEDIA technology education call, and Carroll Campbell, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Carroll and all the work that she's done with women in consumer technology. And there's the Women in Consumer Technology Luncheon that's coming up at CEDIA Expo on Friday. And it's an awesome event if you get to come. And one of the gentlemen on the call, he asked Carol, he said, is that supposed to be kind of like a women's only luncheon? Because I'd love to buy a ticket and I'd love to come and I'd love to support the women. Is it only for women? And, I loved Carol's response, because she said, well, no, of course, we'll take your money to all the guys. We'll take you to, come in and support it, because we do need to have money to support the causes, and help the women's groups, for sure. But also Carol, said, more importantly, is she goes, we need you in that room to help find someone that maybe you can mentor, because it's not just women mentoring, other women. Because if we were waiting around for that, I don't know that we would have ever gotten to where we are today, because there aren't as many, women that started in the industry. But I'm thankful for even a lot of the guys, and, I appreciate that. So he's going to come. And I did point out to him, I said, well, maybe buy a ticket for yourself, and then either another woman at your company, or I said, just buy an extra ticket and tell Carol, hey, look, I'm buying an extra seat. If there's a woman that maybe doesn't have the means, maybe she's starting off a business, maybe she's just getting in, maybe she's a technician, maybe her company, can't afford to send her, they've got, other costs, could you pass this on to someone who could use it? And, that's another way to do it, is invite and get another woman in the room and be willing to mentor. So I think mentors come, to answer your question, in all different, shapes and sizes, and different, different people, and the people that you might least expect, one of my, and this is more of a guy, like an OG, I call him an OG. I call them all my old guys, the OGs. They've been in the industry for a while, but a good friend and a dear mentor to me was Frank White. And he's since retired, and he's not very involved, in the industry anymore, because he's enjoying life with his lovely wife and family in retirement. But, I remember meeting him the first time. And if you know Frank's a little bit rough sometimes on the edges. He's says it how it is, black and white. And I remember my first time meeting him, I was like, either this guy's like one of the biggest jerks in the world, or I'm going to learn a lot from him. I wasn't sure. I was on the fence. I didn't know where I was going to be, but I decided to hang in there. And, he ended up being one of my biggest cheerleaders and one of my biggest supporters. But one of the things that he did for me, and I'm so thankful, is he helped me and told me to make sure that I was tough, because it can be tough to go into those rooms, especially as a woman. I can't tell you, when I first started, how many technical courses, when I'd go to the technical courses, I'd be the only female in the room. And I'm so glad to say that that's no longer the case. You have to be tough, you have to have a little bit of that tough exterior. And it's not about being a guy or being a girl. I mean, female technicians, like, we can be just the same. I mean, another mentor of mine, Peter Aylett, he actually is the one that stopped me and said, Amanda, you need to stop calling yourself a female technician. Like, can't you just say
you're just a technician?
You're just a technician.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, you're right, and so having those people in my life has been so important. So, and every one of those people looks different, acts different, has a different accent, has a different demeanor, but they've all been part of my journey, and I'm so thankful for them. And I just hope that I can help inspire and give that back to somebody else. because it really has changed my life. It's allowed me as a woman to be independent, as a mom to be able to support my family, all of the things. And so that's, again, part of the reason that now I'm continuing to volunteer and I'm on the CEDIA board, is I just want the opportunity to share what was poured into me to someone else. And I think that's what the whole thing is about.
Absolutely. On that same sentiment, I've always had this sort of cringe when somebody said girl boss. Like I hate that term girl boss. Like, can I just be a boss?
Yeah.
Own your domain.
Yeah. And can I just have a bad day and not be bossy? Like, I hate that. Like, it's just
exactly.
it drives me crazy. Like, you're so bossy, And I'm like, no, like, I'm just being the boss. Like, if my husband said the same thing to you, you would not tell him and like whiny, like, oh, you're just being so bossy, or the other B word that I probably can't say on the podcast. Like, you're just being so, I'm like, you wouldn't say that to my husband. So why do you feel comfortable saying that to me? Like,
that's not okay.
I'm being your boss. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. And same for being in classes and only being the only female in the class, but even more so, it was brought to my attention much later. Michelle Lorette, when I was at, when I was at Digital Projection, that was the first time I was teaching in the industry. I mean, this was over a decade ago at this point.
Yeah.
But years later, she came back to me and she's like, you were my first female instructor in the whole industry. And I was like, holy shamoly. Yeah. So yes, I'm glad that is changing for us, for all of us.
Speaking of Michelle, I mean, she's a rock star. She doesn't take any crud from anybody.
Crap from anybody.
Crud, whatever. But she's a huge cheerleader too. She supports, so many people, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
She was one of the first ladies that I actually met on the pro AV side, like on your guys' side, like on the Avixa. And she's been phenomenal, just like welcoming me in, and you guys have a lot of great ladies over there. That's awesome.
We do. We're lucky for sure. So, okay, outside of work, I want to talk a little bit about passion. Now, I know that your son is passionate about shooting clay.
Yeah. Anyone that's connected with me online, I apologize in advance. Like, but isn't that what it's about when you can be the proud mom?
It is.
Moment. I mean, of course, I've got a phenomenal, amazing daughter, as well. She helps
who works with you?
Business. Yeah, she works with us.
Yep.
And, she's brought just some amazing gifts and talents. And then my son, we just dropped him off yesterday, actually, to college. He took a gap year, and now he's in college. And so I'm a little bit, like sad as a mom. I'm kind of getting that empty nest, kind of stage. And yes, he's very passionate about clay target sports and all of that, which it has been a ton of fun. And it's so interesting to me that like that sport and that industry, they deal with the same struggles that we do in technology, right? So there are female athletes, right? And they shoot and they compete against the guys. And then they have a little bit of kind of the old white guy culture. So my son's like, he sees me and, being a strong woman. And so a lot of his, female teammates and stuff like that, like he won't let them use it for excuses. He's like, my mom can go out there and my mom can do what she does, like step it up. So it kind of makes my heart a little bit happy knowing that I've raised a son that like recognizes, women can do it too. And not only can they do it, but it should be the norm instead of the exception. So so that's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. You wait until next year. So my son is in his sophomore year. We dropped him off last week. He started classes this week. And now he calls me when he's walking between classes in the middle of the day, which on one hand is like really lovely. And on the other hand, it's like, I'm in a meeting. I can't.
I have a job. I have, but I think that's so important. Someone asked me the other day, and my role within CEDIA too, I hate to kind of bring it back to that, but my role in CEDIA, being on the board, I'm in the vice chair position, and I'm so thankful being part of that position is that I get to chair the governance committee. And the governance committee are the ones that help vet the people coming up for the board. And CEDIA is going to have their new board elections right after Expo this year. So I'm super excited to be part of that process. And it comes up every year where they talk about, like, how do we get more women and how do we, have more diversity? And I love that the question is totally being asked all the time. And I'm thankful that the question's asked. One of the things that I mentioned, though, to the group is, and I swear I'm going to coin this phrase to that group, is sometimes there are women that are here, but sometimes they need a little bit more time in the crock pot, or they need to have it be the right timing in their life. And I think that that's important for women to hear because, if you look at what I'm volunteering now and being on the board, I couldn't do that if I had young children at home.
Sure.
Because again, by default, it's not every home or every family, but by default, generally it's mom does a little bit more of the school stuff or does a little bit more, of the stuff with the kids. If the kids are home sick, it generally is more often mom. And that's how it
Yeah.
was in my house. I mean, I still worked, but if the kids were home sick, I was the one that stayed. My husband still went to work. And
Sure.
so I don't want women to beat themselves up about it because so often now, we want to have all the, titles and we want to have the climb the corporate ladder and do all of the things that sometimes we get burnout because we feel the pressure to have so many balls in the air and so many, things going on. Give yourself a little bit of grace and give yourself a little bit of time and know that you can be in the group and you can be part of the culture and you can be marinating in that crock pot and taking in the knowledge and the experience. But your time, it might not be ready in your personal life. You may have young kids at home or you may have an aging parent at home. So you have to take that step back because one of the greatest gifts that women are is we're also great caregivers. And I don't want women to feel like, well, if I haven't made it to the board by this time, I'm never going to make it to the board. Or if I don't, make it to this level at my company by this time, I'm never going to make it to that. Sometimes we have just like we have a different trajectory of how we get into this industry. We're not necessarily that straight path. We may have a different trajectory to get to the top or get to our achievements. We may have to have a little bit more time to simmer and have that right time in our lives. Does that make sense a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's an important message to send.
Yeah.
I completely
there's so
agree.
many awesome, I can think of right now, I mean, dozens of awesome ladies that I know darn well. I can see the stuff and I'm like, dude, your wife helped you with this. I just know right away. How many for my industry, people are building showrooms, right? There's no darn way that some of those guys are dude, you can just see their wives' influence, on that. And so often, because if their wife isn't in the spotlight or if she hasn't had the opportunity to climb the ladder because she's in a different season of her life, we think that there aren't women in the industry. There are a lot of women in the industry. It's just some of them are not yet in the right spot or the right time of their life that they're going to have the spotlight. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that that's never going to happen. It will happen. It's just a little bit more for women about timing.
I completely agree. In the spirit of learning, we talk about learning a lot here. What are you reading or listening to, or what have you learned recently that's worth sharing?
A little kind of side note, what I'm learning right now is, I don't know if you know this, because we haven't talked in a minute, just because we both had crazy schedules, is I'm helping CEDIA to curate the education this year for CEDIA Expo. And I don't even know if you knew that. Yeah.
I
And
didn't know that.
let me tell you, I'm learning a ton.
Yeah.
Which it's been an awesome experience, to do that. And part of curating that and pulling that together has been, I get the opportunity to pull together the different panels of the different talks and help them kind of curate the questions and stuff for the moderators. And I just had one of the most interesting ones, and it's going to be about the very latest and greatest in AI. And we had Ari Supran from Sonance, Alex Capisulatro from Josh AI, Kyle Steele from Wave Integration, James Radcliffe. oh, he's going to kill me because I cannot remember. Oh, from Home Play, sorry, in the UK. I was going to say, if I don't remember his company, he's going to kill me. And we were talking about, AI. And I am having a ton of fun tinkering with that. And I would say I'm definitely more of a hobbyist than these guys are, that are teaching the class. But I think the class is going to be phenomenal. But I'm tinkering with that so much. And I find that it's interesting, like technology, women use it very differently than guys. So I'm playing around.
And left often.
Yes. Yeah. I'm playing around with it a lot with like graphics type stuff. Like I'm using it with Artistly. I'm kind of tinkering with that one. I'm using it to streamline, like, I mentioned my life as a mom. I can let it know, help it make my shopping lists and pull up recipes and, all the things that make my life easier. So I don't know that I'm necessarily reading a specific thing right now. I'm literally trying to like absorb as much as I possibly can with this AI, because I know for some people it can be really, really scary and the whole thought process behind it. But I also think we're in such an opportunity to be able to use this AI to streamline and make some more efficiencies in our lives. And I think particularly for women, if we embrace it, we have a tendency to be the big multitaskers. I've noticed guys are generally much more one task, from start to finish, get it done. Women, we've got a lot more things coming at us, and leveraging the power of AI to help remind us to do something or streamline a process or make our lives easier, I think is so important. So I'm having a ton of fun, like listening to podcasts on that, tinkering around with a lot of the different AIs, just talking to people and seeing what people are using and asking people how they're using it. Has been so much fun. And that's what I think I'm most excited about right now. And if you looked at my free time, I think that that's where I'm spending, honestly, most of my free time.
Yeah, I love AI and playing with the new models and all, different platforms for different reasons, for sure. And I sat in a panel earlier this year with somebody who was, I think it was Craig Durr that said it. I don't remember. But we were talking about the time saved with AI. So if you're able to, complete repetitive tasks quickly, or, whatever time savings you find from AI, how do you reuse that time? Is it actually going back into work, or is it going back into AI? And he recommended to reinvest that time into learning more AI or teaching somebody else AI to make your organization more efficient, which I thought was a fascinating take on, great, now you have all this time, now what? Invest it back.
Yeah.
So
I would say invest it back and invest it in relationships. Because that is probably the one thing I'm most nervous about. Like when I watch my kids and I see their generation, that's coming up, and my kids might be a little bit weird or a little bit different just because they've been their whole lives, they've been on sales calls with mom and dad. So they're used to, talking to adults, and they're used to, having to make eye contact and, do all of these things. But I look at a lot of their peers and they're struggling with that. So I think, even if you can take a couple extra minutes and, if you don't know everything about AI and you want to learn, invite a younger person that maybe knows AI out to a coffee with you and talk about it face to face, because they're going to teach you about AI and you're going to help teach them about holding a conversation and having that eye contact. And that's really how we can kind of both help each other. So I think that, definitely if you get an opportunity, like you said, to give back and maybe teach that to somebody else or learn something from somebody else, by default, we can teach them too. Like, because that eye contact and that human connection is so important. And I want to make sure that we don't lose that. And we are the treasure holders of that. Our generation is the treasure holders of that. And it's important that we share that treasure. We don't hoard it up,
This is the last question, and we have a tradition on the show where the last guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing who it might be.
Ooh.
So Your question is, name a time in your life when you were totally happy and felt completely fulfilled.
This is going to be a dumb one, but if you get it, I won't go into the whole story because it's a long one. It's kind of like the story of my life, but I think it's important for people to hear because as a business owner and an entrepreneur, my husband and myself, I would love to tell you that everything is always going to come up roses and everything's going to be great. But the reality is you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. And sometimes life is absolutely going to kick you down and stomp you down. And the part of my story is that's crazy is there was a period of time where my husband, we lost our house, we lost our housing, and things were literally the darkest that it could be. Possibly. I didn't know how we were going to survive. I didn't know how we were going to last the week. And we had 2 young kids. And for whatever reason, for the 2 of us, it pulled us together. And we were like, no matter what, this family, everything else around us can fracture. The business can fracture. The housing situation can fracture. Everything can fracture, but our family is never going to fracture. And we made that decision. And it was hard. And we had to work through it. And there was a lot of tears. But when I look back on that now, and I ask my kids about that time, they don't, the traditions and the things that we started because we didn't have the money to buy all of the Christmas presents and do all of the crazy things. I mean, my kids to this day, they get 3 Christmas presents. That's everybody gets 3 Christmas presents because we could barely scrape that together. And I asked my kids a few years ago, did you want to change that? And they were like, no, that's our family tradition. And so even though it was the bleakest for us, my kids don't see that. And when I look back on it now, even though that was very, very, very difficult and it would have been very, very easy to give up, I look back on that now and I think that that's something that forged me into the person that I am today. And so I think for women out there, we can be in hard challenges. We could lose a spouse, we could get a divorce, we could not get married when we want to get married, whatever the kick in the face or whatever that life throws at you, don't give up. Don't let yourself fracture. Don't let yourself fail. And you will get to a point in time in your life that you'll look back and it will be some of the best memories and it will make you who you are. It'll make you amazing.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. That's a great answer.
You tell me later. I get to leave a question. Nobody knows now.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Good.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story on this episode of the Women in AV podcast. It has been such a pleasure having you on the show, sharing your insights and your experiences. So, Amanda, where can people find you and or TruMedia?
Everything on all the socials and our website, including, I always say this because Matt Scott likes to call me out, but I am on TikTok too. But it's TruMedia Home. He hates it, so I always point it out. TruMedia Home, it's spelled TRU, no E, MEDIA, home.com. On Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, our website. You can find me at CEDIA, and I have the best and easiest email at CEDIA because they take your first initial and your last name. So A Wildman is officially at cedia.org. So I'm keeping that email for the rest of my life. There's officially A Wildman at CEDIA. So that's a great email to be able to reach out to me as well. And I would love to see anyone at Expo. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone listening, you can find me in all the social places with the handle at the Erica Carroll. Thank you again. And to all our listeners, if you're listening to this on audio only, please be sure to check out the YouTube version and vice versa. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also find us anywhere you get your podcast. And remember to check out some of our other AVNation shows, like our friends over at AV Career Mastermind on avnation.tv.
The network for the AV industry. What are you listening to?
This is AV.
This is AVNation.
This is AVNation.